Welcome, everybody. Just wanted to say hello and also just hoping that everybody is having a great time with the semester. And happy Friday afternoon and welcome to the fourth year of Just an Hour, the very first one that we're starting up this series. So just want to give you a little bit of a context for these spaces that we have created. And the credit goes to the people who actually conceptualized it first. And that was then Associate Dean Punya Mishra and Betty G. They collaborated on this and started the process to create this space for having a generation of ideas and some ways of addressing issues that might transpire during our journey. Right now, it's more of a collaboration among the associate deans and the scholarship team. You saw Jeannie Powers is our member of the scholarship team, and we have Audrey, who is also a member of this team. I also would like to remind us that we are always looking for input and ideas about how we should be moving forward with these sessions and how to facilitate them. So please continue to provide some input on those things too. Also wanted to let you know that we are always, recording these depending on the topic and so forth, unless we have some restriction on the content that we cannot record. And oftentimes, we've had to make those decisions last year. With that, I'm just, again, welcome you all and want to sort of remind us about some of the things that we've been hearing from the institution side, from President Crow, who has actually recognized how research happens to be this invisible hand that drives our progress. I just want us to remember that part. And then, he also has noted, and we all have sort of seen that the science community has become complacent in many ways. He has pointed it out. And with all these disruptions that have happened recently in our political landscape, we have seen that, oftentimes, perhaps we took federal funding for granted in many ways. So it has sort of make it important for us to be, getting involved in this public engagement, really consider about research, community partnerships, community building as elements that go, hand in hand. They're not just separate or entities that, they need to flow together. And that's the reminder that we have. Along with that, I also want to remind you for your own achievements and things that you've been doing, we would like to keep ourselves informed of those. And so if you are going to the hub, please pay attention to the scholarship rounded survey and always fill out the stuff that you've been doing. We want to know how you're doing. Once again, a very warm welcome to our presenters who are here because we just like to be very respectful of the time that we have. And today we're exploring the power of university-district partnerships and how they can lead to meaningful, lasting changes. And we're sort of building on the same momentum that we just talked about from President Crow and trying to see how our colleagues have been anchoring their work within these districts, sort of sorting out their priorities, co-constructing solutions, and so forth. With that, I would like to introduce Wendy P. Oakes. She's the Nadine Mathis Basha Professor of Early Childhood Education at Arizona State University in our college, MLFC, where she leads research on comprehensive integrated three-tiered prevention models and evidence-based interventions to support young children with emotional and behavioral disorders. Welcome, Wendy. Thank you for being here. And we have Paul Gibbs, serves as a senior program evaluator and the lead strategic research partnerships in the research and evaluation department at Mesa Public Schools. He earned his PhD in educational policy and evaluation from Arizona State University, bringing expertise in assessment, accountability, comparative and international education and inclusive decision-making to his work. And finally, we have Brad Thompson. our doctoral candidate in education policy and evaluation program at Arizona State University, our college. His research focuses on the special education teacher workforce, education preparation pathways, and policies that expand educational opportunities for students with disabilities and system-involved youth. We've been hearing this feedback from the last year that we need to get our doctoral students involved in these kind of opportunities. So welcome, Brad, to this one. Starting off really good that way. With that, I'm just going to pass the baton to Wendy to take it from here and facilitate this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Sarup. And I just want to say thank you to Sarup and Jeannie and Audrey for inviting the three of us to lead this discussion. We hope that it's an interactive discussion. We want to hear how you all are thinking about this work and how it intersects with some of the things that we've been thinking about as well. And I also want to say I feel incredibly honored to be on this panel with both Brad and Paul. They're talented and super committed to promoting learning outcomes for all kids and educators in the field. And so it's inspiring to be so connected with what's happening in authentic context today. I've been thinking a lot recently, as I know we all do, around the mission of the college, right? Around creating knowledge, mobilizing people, and then taking action to advance the learning outcomes for those that we serve. But also really deeply about this responsibility for the communities that we serve, and in particular for us, the education outcomes of those in our state. So that sort of frames the context of which we engage in this. Every time I talk to Paul, and Paul may blush, but every time I talk to Paul, he teaches me something different about how I need to think about engaging in research. And I've been doing this for a very long time. So I still, every time I talk to him, recognize how much more I have to learn. And so I'm super thrilled that he's here to share that perspective today. So I just wanted to frame it again around that big picture. And actually I'm going to hand it off to Paul now, who's going to talk a little bit about his perspective from the district and how to collaborate around research and the work that we've been doing together. And then he'll kick it over to Brad to give some details as well. So I think Paul might have high level and then also start to talk about the project we're working on together, and Brad can fill in lots of the details. So Paul.
Yeah, thank you. You can hear me okay?
You can.
All right, I just had to switch my computer really quick. Well, it's good to be with you guys. I'm happy to see a wonderful long list of folks that I know and names that that are endearing to me. So it's good to be here with everybody today. So I've been here. I did as was discussed earlier by Sarup, I did my PhD with ASU, finished in 22, and have been here at the district since then. And prior to coming to ASU, I was in K-12 for 12 years. And so I'm happy to be back into this area and actually doing as a program evaluator pretty much exactly what I was hoping we could do after being at ASU. So I'm very thankful for ASU and the work of preparing me for what I'm doing now. So my work here at the district, my title is Senior Program Leader, Senior Program Evaluator, and Lead for Strategic Research Partnerships. And so my role involves not just conducting evaluations within the district with our wonderful, rich data set that we have here at the district, but also looking for ways to engage other partners in that process, folks like Wendy, folks like Brad, and others along the way that I've been able. Jesse help me with the last name. Thank you. Fleming at ASU as well, and amongst others. Margarita, I've partnered with quite a bit as well. So part of my work is trying to find ways to accomplish the district's research aims, and along the way, try to bring in partners in that process.
I think we lost Paul for a second.
Yeah.
My computer just switched over. I don't know why, but anyhow. So like I was saying before, my goal is to try to connect partners in research with the goals of the district and try to wrap data around our initiatives and understand how we're doing and where we can grow. So um, I connected with Wendy through our um, through I guess we're talking about Path to Teach at that point. I've known Wendy since I came to ASU back in 2018, but we began talking at one point in time about the Path to Teach program, which is a alternative teacher licensure program, and she mentioned, hey, we have a doctor. First of all, she said, I like to help whatever I can do, and she said that I know that it may not result in, I told her, I don't know if this is going to result in a paper or publications. I can't guarantee anything's going to come out of that. And she said, well, this is an important project to me and I care about it and I want to try to help where I can. So she got involved and helped me work through the evaluation framework that we were thinking of using at the time. And along the way, as this began to materialize, she mentioned that she had a doctoral student that she's working with who also has an interest in this area, and that doctoral student is Brad Thompson, is with us today. But so we'll talk a little bit more about that partnership a bit more. But in the process of kind of talking through how that partnership looks, Wendy and I have had a number of conversations just about the bigger picture of how to pair the research interest of universities with school districts. And because a lot of what I do, the district has very little bandwidth for different projects we can take on for research. And so every proposal that we receive goes through a fairly stringent process of asking, okay, how closely aligned is this with current initiatives that we have going on? Not just the big goals of what we're doing and missional alignment, but we have this particular program in teacher licensure going on. We had this particular program in K-6 math going on. And do the proposals coming in fit with and help us support these initiatives? And we have so many mission-driven educators in districts and so many deeply missional individuals working in our universities, both of whom attack their work not simply with just an intellectual passion, but with an ethical passion and a desire to make a difference in the world. And so we're all doing it for the same reasons. And however, unfortunately, there often is a misconnect between those, where you have people who, send in a proposal to my department to consider for research. And when we read the proposal, it's very clear that the person behind this proposal is committed, is passionate, is wanting the best for kids. But at this point in time, there just is no open door for this work to proceed in our district. And then there are times when we have, our districts have needs, but there doesn't seem to be a good match on the other end to find somebody to help with that work. So, it's just a bit ironic to me and unfortunate that often, the proposals come in and we just don't have any space for it. And so most proposals that we received actually don't get accepted, not because we don't want to do it, but because we only have bandwidth for a certain number of priorities. And so as Wendy and I were talking about, it's like, how can we do a better job of making sure that our colleagues in the university have a clear pathway to understand, have a clear vision of what it is that is needed, so that before our partners build out their proposals and spend a lot of hours sometimes writing proposals and crafting grant proposals, and then have to go from district to district to district finding the right partner. How can we reverse that, where before the grant proposal is ever written, there's an interaction with, or research project is designed, there's an interaction with the districts and find out what are you interested in, so that when a faculty member is looking at proposals, they recognize, oh, this would be good for Mesa Public Schools. This would be good for this district. This would be good for that district. And then before taking all the time and effort to write their proposal, engaging in conversations, to understand, okay, how can we design this so that it gets accomplished exactly what you need to have accomplished? So one of the pieces that we came up with out of that conversation is just simply we need more face time. We need more conversation time. We need more the casual conversations that happen periodically. You know, what are you guys up to these days? What are you working on? What are your projects in both directions? So that someone like me, I can understand what's cooking with research projects at ASU. And so that people at ASU understand, here are some initiatives that we're working with here at the district. And some of those things are very quick. They pass very quickly. I mean, you have 1 year to implement. And so the timeline for a research project may not be long enough. Often, actually, they won't be long enough. But if you know ahead of time that's coming, then you can get involved with it. So these are some of the things that we kind of discussed. And just that kind of finding ways to have an ongoing conversation with our districts so that our hardworking, ethically driven researchers in the universities don't become disappointed or disillusioned with the lack of interest in the districts, because there is an interest, but are able to spend their time and energies in things that there's already an open door to receiving. So, in my mind, universities can also have a very important role, not only in helping districts be able to do research around the work, but also connecting us with other similar partners, other districts that have similar interests. So if the university has an ongoing conversation with Mesa Public Schools or Tempe or someone like that, you have these ongoing conversations. I might not have that conversation with Tempe, but you do. And you start saying, oh, hey, we can bring these 3 districts together, or I'm partnering with this district in North Carolina and they're working on this as well. So let's have you guys talk and see what comes of it. It may not go the way that you plan on. It may actually end up being more profitable long term. But the universities are uniquely positioned to help to bring those connections, to make those connections between districts. So I feel like there's a real opportunity in these communications, not only of understanding better what the districts need, but also supporting districts by bringing districts together around common concerns that they might not even know, that I might not even realize that this district is wrestling with this problem or asking the same kinds of questions, but you all might. So, how can universities, and I'm speaking with plural because it's not so much about ASU as it is, I think this is a phenomenon at a larger scale. I mean, we know there is this research around this very subject, but how can universities at a larger scale help to create those partnerships between districts? And then when those partnerships are there, how can the university provide the research infrastructure to allow knowledge generation to come out of those partnerships? And so these are some of the things that I think that I've really enjoyed talking to Wendy about, and that have been part of this conversation that we've been having. So just a few thoughts there, and I talked probably longer than I was supposed to here, Wendy. So
yeah, no. So just a couple things. One of the things that we actually did this week, Kathy Hoffman and Quentin Boyce lead the, they renamed it Education Futures Superintendents Roundtable, where they bring superintendents together from around the state, around different issues that are of concern, the most pressing concerns, to superintendents, and then try to make the connections between different things that we have going on at the university. So that is one mechanism for us to learn from them the things that are most pressing. So Kathy, if you want to say anything about that, please jump in. But on Wednesday, we met with them and sort of started this conversation around like, what are the questions you have? What are the needs in your districts? Which is really where Paul and I started, right? And then how can we and research be useful to you for advancing what you are doing in your district? And they all have different levels of staff available, resources, interests, and so forth. They don't all have a Paul or Paul's office in their districts, but there are still pressing questions that they don't necessarily have the resources to be able to answer, or the time. I mean, time is a resource. On their own. And so how do we think about ways that we can collaborate across areas of interest? I would say that one of the things that Paul did was when we were talking about a research project, and he said, sometimes the questions that we're asking in the research project are so micro or niche, right, that they actually don't provide the information that districts need to make good decisions for all of their students. And sometimes that's appropriate. I'm thinking about, special populations and so forth. But there are questions sometimes that that the district needs answered, and we can answer those sort of more micro questions or detailed questions within the larger frame. For example, Brad is really interested in special education teachers and the special education workforce. However, the district needs to answer those questions for all of their pre-service alt-cert teachers. So Brad, I'm going to kick it to you just to talk a little bit about Path to Teach, and maybe 2 seconds on what Path to Teach is, because I'm not sure everybody here actually knows that.
Sure. Well, nice to see everyone. My name is Brad Thompson. Yeah, like Dr. Oak said, like Wendy said, I'm a prior special education teacher coming into the program, going through the same program that Paul went through. So we have that in common. We talk about that often. But yeah, so quickly to talk about Path to Teach, it's an alternative certification program, both a classroom-based educator preparation program and a university-based program. So it has 2 different tracks in which teachers who are already have their bachelor's degree will enter. They'll become teacher of record and basically learn on the job, as well as receive professional learning. Those that are going through the classroom-based educator preparation program and want to pursue a master's degree will also have additional coursework through ASU. So there's another kind of aspect of that partnership. And we can talk more about that particular program. If any questions come up, I'm happy to discuss that. But yeah, so for me as a doctoral student, now doctoral candidate, and having the opportunity to be part of this partnership. First of all, Wendy is very good at introducing people. Actually, the first time I've met Wendy was at a CEC conference. The first time I met her, she actually, 5 minutes into the conversation, she says, "Oh, I need you to meet this person," brought me over and introduced me to Liz Bettini. So I've been very fortunate to have advisors throughout this program, such as Wendy, that are really want the best for my program and my experience. So having Wendy on my side has been awesome, because she was able to introduce me to Paul. She brought up this opportunity in passing. We talked about it, and I got really excited about it. I think I texted her the morning after and say, I'm really interested in this. It really does align with my research. Oh,
What are the chances that every time
sorry.
someone's
I think I jinxed it or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So I'll pick up a little bit for Brad until he gets back here. So essentially what happened is Brad was invited to join this leadership team with Paul and other leaders in the district, and thinking about how to evaluate the teacher preparation program that was there and how to look at it by different groups. So the special ed teachers, but the general education teachers, and how to look at it from multiple perspectives. So we're really looking at the acceptability of this as a way for training teachers within the district, from an administrator's perspective, coach's perspective, the teachers themselves, and eventually down the road we're going to get to family perspectives and student perspectives and outcomes as well. But for now, really looking at the quality of the program and how people are succeeding in it, or not if they're not. the one unique thing, and I don't know if Aisha's here, but one of the unique things around this project too has been not only has Brad been able to come in and work with the Mesa leadership team, but he's been able to mobilize other resources in the college. So Brad, I'm going to hand it back to you. We were just talking about the frame of connecting everyone. Go ahead.
Yeah. That was convenient. So so I guess picking up where I left off, once introduced to Paul, we were able to meet as a team to kind of discuss that work that Wendy and Paul had already been working on, creating a logic model, research questions centered on the district needs. And considering my interest was particularly around special education workforce, I definitely needed to be flexible, but for me, it was a really an opportunity to be able to ground the research that I'm doing in kind of these larger ideas, and to be able to have experience trying to understand other elements of workforce issues and the district needs in terms of how they're preparing teachers, both general and special education teachers. So I think I gave enough context, but
will you talk a little bit about how Aisha's class came into play and how you were able to, both provide learning opportunities for students here and also that increased resource support?
Sure. Dr. Boyce, Aisha Boyce, as a doctoral student, you go through evaluation 1 and 2 through the PhD in policy and evaluation. And so I had gone through Aisha's course, and actually that's the first time I've met Paul, because he has mentored students through that course, has partnered with Aisha to pull in doctoral students to help with certain research projects that they have at NPS. So this came up as a way, as we built this partnership, the idea then to bring that into Aisha's class, and where I was able to not only, be in a leadership position to help mentor the cohort, some of my cohort doctoral students that were coming up behind me, with the experience of going through that course, but also being someone that is actually conducting the program evaluation. I think one was a great experience for me to gain that leadership experience, but also to contribute to Aisha's class in terms of helping students, mentoring the doctoral students that were part of the team, and really being able to, give them details and pull in. And, we held meetings almost once a week to kind of discuss data, writing IRBs, designing the research plan, the evaluation plan, and so forth, and other details that go into program evaluation. So that was really a great experience. And then the information that they were able to put together is going to contribute to the overall program evaluation that Paul and I are collaborating on. So not only was it an experience for doctoral students, but it also is going to be meaningful towards the district goal. And part of that is collecting constituent perspectives and other aspects of the program evaluation that we do. It was very helpful to have more hands on deck in trying to collect data and analyze data.
And I think it's that reciprocal kind of benefit, right? So providing these learning experiences and authentic evaluation, which Aisha always does in her class, but particularly around this, right? And then to have the resource of have Brad to be able to collaborate so closely with Paul. So that brings sort of that, that team of resources around the questions that we're trying to understand around the educator preparation program.
I think it also helped with Paul. I mean, Paul needing, usually in that partnership, he has to be very present and trying to mentor students and meet with the doctoral students. And really where I think a benefit of having me as part of this partnership is I kind of act as that in between. It's something that has been helpful for me to learn both from Wendy and Paul and Aisha. But I hope that it's also helpful for them that if they can't make a meeting or there's trust that's built between us where I can relay back information that's important, or if Paul has something that comes up like districts always do, that I can step in and take on that role and then be able to, fill Paul in later at a later date. So I think that's also a helpful aspect of that.
Yes, confirmed. Yeah, that's been very helpful. And I'd be negligent if I hadn't mentioned Aisha and her classes. They've been really helpful at kind of picking out a slice of a larger question that we're working on and collecting data around it. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that, Brad. And I did find it tremendously helpful this year to have Brad as an additional support in trying to give those students in Aisha's class the best possible experience.
And of course, as Brad's advisor, I'm trying to figure out how to help him frame it and put it on the CV. Because everything he does, I'm like, where's that on your CV? Is that on your CV? As he's applying for jobs at the moment. So pressing on our mind. But yeah, how do we build those, right? How do we build those learning experiences that end up providing district with questions? We would love to hear questions. I have a couple questions I can pose to them, but I would love to hear from you all. Your own experiences, your thinking around how we work more collaboratively with districts, how we build these partnerships that help districts answer their questions and also advance the science and knowledge around particular areas.
Well, they're thinking, may I just jump in with one more piece, Wendy, as an example of a partnership? ASU has, for a number of years, partnered with us in Next Education and Workforce. And that has been a very wonderful relationship. And I've been very grateful for the opportunity to collaborate with Lennon and the team. And I think Krista, I thought I saw Krista Adams on the call here today. She was one of our principals, who's now working at ASU full-time with the Next Ed Workforce. But along the same lines as Brad working with us, what they actually did this year was they actually put one of their GAs in our office at the district. So this morning, Brad's I'm actually not in my office, Brad's at the office. And working there today is another GA from ASU who's working on Next Education Workforce project. So, and she's doing confirmatory factor analysis for us on student surveys and helping to kind of move things to the point where we can try to get the surveys as productive as possible for Next Ed Workforce. So that's just another example, a huge example of how we've partnered with ASU to accomplish the district's goals.
So please do unmute if you have a question, but I'll throw one out there. I don't see anyone unmuting. Okay. What about this partnership has been tremendous and positive at every turn. So that's not always the case, right? When you have competing demands and expectations, faculty doctoral students have certain expectations that they have to meet, as well as the things, Paul, that you were sharing earlier. So what are some ways, or were there any tensions as we navigated this, where the district needs and the university folk needs didn't necessarily align? And then what did you do to make sure that both were honored?
At the risk of talking too much, I'll go ahead and jump in on that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in this particular project, perhaps one area that Brad and I have talked about a little bit is, okay, the district has an evaluation plan that Brad helped us craft too. So he was there with it, but Brad himself cannot do all the pieces of that project. There's student level data and quantitative analysis that I need to do. And I owe Brad some analysis for that one at some point here very soon. But that's there with Brad's work, he's very focused on special education, and the district's focus for this program is not only special education, but also general ed too. So Brad's dissertation is focused on special ed, and I know it's been a constant reminder for himself. I don't need to say it. Like I could see him actively thinking about it. Okay, I need to make sure I keep general ed in focus because the evaluation is focused on more than special ed, and I need to give the district the broader scope that we partnered with them originally to evaluate. So I think that's an example of how not so much attention, but like sometimes you may not be pulling exactly in the same direction. You're kind of going like this. So you're not necessarily right down the same line, but close to it. But if we can stay together long enough to get the job done, then all the better. So it is working out great. But that's an example of sometimes where the researcher might have a specific interest that could pull them another way. But Brad's been very intentional and very mindful about thinking about what the district actually needs out of this, so that he doesn't just, take his one piece and run away. He wants to see this project through to completion, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think, there's been some things that we did to address that on the research side. For example, we sampled the entire Path to Teach cohorts, both the cohorts. And then from that, a piece of that will then be used as a dissertation. So there's ways that we approach it where first it's the big picture, and then it's narrowed down from there. I'll also say, just being part of and being invited into some of the meetings in the Pathways leadership team, I get to be part of when they meet. Not the conversations always aren't. They're never always about my particular research interest directly, but I can always find something indirectly and how they're related indirectly. And from that perspective, and how I approach it is all the information I can gather helps kind of build a kind of a framework or foundation for the other things that I'm interested in, and just in terms of using that to build trust as well is part of that, because you also have to understand procedures and processes from the district. And so being able to be part of meetings that maybe aren't directly about the things that you're trying to research are also very informative in how you understand and continue to be invited back and be invited to the team. For example, the way they handle data and areas around confidentiality, and just being transparent. And so really every conversation I learn something, whether it's about a literacy program or if it's about Path to Teach itself. There's always something that I can take away that kind of helps me move forward with this partnership and continue to build that trust and kind of ground the other things that I'm researching in terms of where the district is, their needs, and maybe potential things down the road that we could, further collaborate and research and build on.
Or connections that you might make to other folks who are doing that work, right? And so you could introduce someone new into that collaboration. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As a special educator, I always thought of myself as like a pollinator, right? I find an idea over here and then I bring it over here where it looks like it could also be useful. And I think, it's part of it. You're deeply trying to understand the context, both the constraints that they have, the interests, the needs, and then trying to knit together kind of a team of folks who might be able to help move that work forward.
That's one of the things that I find, actually want to say, that I really appreciated about working with you, Wendy, is your flexibility in terms of, okay, not all the ideas, and actually I had a very similar conversation like this with Margarita back early on. I had a research proposal and I knew that wasn't quite exactly what she was interested in, but she's like, well, let's just see what happens. Let's go with it and find out. And the same thing with you, Wendy, like, I don't know if there's a paper coming out of it. Hopefully Margarita and I have something coming out of this, a couple of things we got going on now, but there might not always be a paper coming out of it, but maybe the next study there will be, and so I've appreciated flexibility with folks, with thought partners at ASU, not only to connect me with, to cross-pollinate the way Wendy has, but also just to have a thought partner to think through and stare at my computer screen like Margarita has done many times, looking at my computer screen with me as I'm wrestling through the statistical challenge. And but the flexibility in terms of the research agenda, I've really appreciated with you, Wendy, and also with Margarita too. Just the openness to, okay, that might not be what I do, but you're both in many, as I mentioned before, we have a university full of mission-driven people. But the flexibility in research agenda has been tremendously helpful at just having a thought partner to think through things with. So I've appreciated that a lot.
Margarita, your name has come up numerous times during this partnership, and Brad and I are sitting together talking about a question that Paul brought up. We're like, let's ask Margarita about that. So some of you have been brought into this partnership, whether you know it or not.
Yeah, Margaret, we'll come back to you on something else later on, actually.
Yeah.
I've been threatening her with have to teach for a while, and eventually we'll catch up with her.
I think it was social network analysis, which I think should be part of almost everything we do.
Yeah, I noticed Denise had a comment in there regarding doctoral candidates 5 to 7 years later continuing the same type of thinking. And I think with this type of experience, just from the doctoral candidate perspective, that it does really give you, it does really ground the research as well. So you're in there, and I feel like it has had that impact on me as well, as that one, I have these relationships built. So moving forward, I plan to maintain them and build on them. But the research and the experience through this process has definitely given me areas that I'd like to expand and continue building on, and really has helped me, target in on the things that I find really interested in and build other research questions on top of. So just to build off of what Denise was saying, I can relate to that. I hope this line of research continues, especially around alternative certification.
Yeah, I think from the student perspective, the opportunities that come out of partnerships can be tremendous. Brad actually happened to join a project where the team lead for this project within the district is like, hey, would you just join our team? And so now Brad's an official part of all the team meetings that we have around this program. And it has a special educator. They've really valued his input, and they've asked him to help with putting together proposals for other projects too. So now Brad's engaging in apprenticeship programs. That's been good. We talked about Aisha students getting involved with program evaluations for several years now. And then Jeannie Powers we're just working right now to try to get several of her students connected with our with a research project we're doing around an evaluation we're doing around high quality instructional materials and mathematics. And she has a class that's doing ethnography. Because how do we leverage these students in ethnography to contribute to the larger evaluation on mathematics instruction? Well, there actually is a really cool way that we can put those students to work. But she got involved in it early enough and has an open mind to whatever the projects are we're working on to be able to bring them in. So I think that'll be a great experience for the students and also provide some useful data that we'll be able to plug into our larger evaluation as well.
There's also two of the district leaders and Path to Teach are now in our EDD program as well. And their problem of practice is around the work that they're doing in Path to Teach. So do you see where I need the social network, right? Like connect all of these pieces together.
Yeah.
I'm better at wait time than Paul or Brad. Do we have any comments or thoughts? One of the questions that Sarup had posed for us was about the long game, and you've both talked a little bit about that just now. But what advice might you give to others about sustaining long-term partnerships that produce meaningful research, right? The creation of new knowledge, and also that have direct benefit for educators, students in your communities. And that can be Paul or Brad or
I think I'd find a good place to drink coffee.
so we don't have to meet on campus.
Yeah, just in terms of a longer term connection. So I mentioned several times now, connecting with Margarita on projects and then others as well. Just finding time to kind of occasionally touch base and see what somebody's working on and finding out where their things are going. And if you're not involved in kind of longer term conversation with the districts, then you might not see the opportunity when it begins to open up, because it takes a long time to spin up a research project. And by the time the district actually needs the data, it's just when you're just getting your project put together and it's too late. But if you know kind of down the road, okay, this is coming up, there's something brewing around this. I wonder if we could bring this in and this in. And if you kind of have a sustained relationship and a connection with the district, that you have those conversations early on, then perhaps there's enough time to spin things up and to take advantage of that connection.
Especially for proposal writing, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we recently came across a proposal and, so put a team together, had Paul in on our very first conversation when we were even like, should we even do this? We didn't end up doing it because the budget didn't work, but just sort of like, let's have the first conversation together. The RFA went out to everyone. We're like, let's get together and see if we can address one of these issues that we've been talking about. So yeah, early and often, and not so agenda driven, right? Sometimes we just need to hear what's happening in spaces and we can start to make those connections. Sorry.
And in that particular case, the early was good because when a proposal comes to the district, it has to go through multiple hands. Sometimes it actually has to go all the way to the board. And so if there's not a lot of internal momentum behind this particular project, it doesn't go anywhere. So with that one, with Wendy's proposal, we were able to kind of craft the proposal around an existing problem we have, a practice. And I was able to go and talk to the people involved in that to see, hey, does this look like it'd be something that we'd be interested in? And to kind of get not a green light, but a sign of interest before going too far down the road. So yeah, the early and often it's important, as you just said.
One more thing to add is that, actually it's been very helpful to create meaningful relationships. I feel like the people that I've been working with at Mesa they're now, I consider them friends and colleagues. And so really taking the time to make meaningful relationships outside of an agenda probably works, towards a long-term partnership and really getting to know people and offering some of your time and resources back, regardless of your time and whatnot. But I think that's been something that has been very, very meaningful for me for this type of partnership, is that being an educator, I get to actually give back into Mesa and bridge the research to the practice. And I think that will go moving forward. I think that'll help create that sustainable partnership as well.
Is it okay if I hop in with a quick question?
Please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, I totally understand like what is like being said throughout this entire session so far. But it sounds like to me such a big part of this is like the connections that you like have to either your students, the connections that you have to somebody who's already like in a school district. So I've been here for 2 years now, and a lot of the issues y'all talked about in terms of connecting with school districts are things that I've dealt with were like, I have an idea for a project and folks like you said, they're not really trying to like do that project for one reason or another because it doesn't really align to like what they want to be doing right now. So I guess more broadly, I know you said it's important to build these relationships with folks, but as a person like myself who is not from Arizona, who's not like directly connected to these school districts, what's your suggestion about how to start to build those like relationships?
Yeah, I would say, and I think, Paul mentioned Jesse at the beginning when he was introducing some of the folks that he's working with, right? And that connection just came from an introduction because of a conversation that Paul and I had around something that the district was thinking about. And Jesse burst down the hall, and I know what he's doing, right? And so I just introduced him. I think you guys had lunch or coffee or something like that. So I think sharing as often as you can about the work that you're doing and the opportunities you have, so that somebody on this call or in the college knows of someone having that interest as well and can make that initial introduction. I think that goes a long way. I think the superintendent's roundtable is a really good opportunity for us. And I just saw Kathy unmute, so I'm going to let her chat about that. But that's something that we can really engage with to start to learn about what districts want and make the connections there as well. Kathy, go ahead.
When you talked about it before, I was driving, and now I might have
Oh,
cilantro in my
sorry.
teeth. No, now I might have cilantro in my teeth because I was probably just eating lunch. And so I'm like, but yes, that's exactly what I was thinking was when we had that meeting, 3 days ago now, we had some roundtable discussions with the superintendents who were there about what are their most urgent needs, what areas would they be considered to be their highest need in terms of research needs that they would want ASU support on. And there were quite a range of topics that came out of that, everything from math to special ed to, I wasn't at every table, but lots of mental health was a big one. Lots of topics came out of that. And we did try to capture that in our notes, which I'm still going through. But that was like one of the intentions out of that meeting. Unfortunately, it's not like an open invitation for every ASU person to come to those meetings because we'd have like 50 ASU people and like 20 district people there. But we try to be really strategic and looping in our colleagues and faculty. And so, for example, Erin Rotherham Fuller also shared some examples of how she's been, well, she / Project Oasis and other projects she's on also has a couple different research partnerships with districts. So we provided those as examples to the leaders, and the superintendent from Pendergast spoke really highly about their partnership with our researchers as well. So we were really trying to promote it in that space because I think we recognize that there isn't that like open communication between our faculty and superintendents and district leaders who can move that work forward at the local level. So I'm happy to support in any way I can and try to connect those dots whenever possible.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And Yingqi is in the Division for Educator Preparation, is working in collaboration with Aisha Boyce and DIPPLE, I don't know what it stands for, Practices, Policy, and Leadership. Someone tell me if that was right. In putting together some sort of way for us to better understand and be able to connect the needs of districts, and for us to be able to understand them, try to create some sort of space where we can start to make some of those connections as well. But yeah, I think every opportunity you can to share what you're doing, right? Just start talking about it. Hey, I'm looking for a partner. I'm thinking about this, right? And then the people that can connect absolutely will. Kathy is a tremendous connector, as many folks are.
I do not have a question, but I just wanted to mention that I really appreciate the collaboration and partnership with Paul as, I guess, district representative. I'm not part of a partnership with district per se. It's more like individual level partnership. But as Wendy mentioned in the beginning, it's a learning experience. I also learn from Paul each time, especially like how to navigate space for which we work, but we don't know much still as researchers. And I think the second point for me, which is really important each time we work with Paul, is immediate feedback. So when we just work in isolation and, generate results, findings, and data, like you have to wait either conference presentation, seminar, something to get feedback. But when we work with Paul, it's immediate. He immediately see how these findings actually can be contextualized and what do they mean. And I think for me, it's kind of the most beautiful part of that experience. And that's why I do that. So, yeah, just wanted to mention that it's a great experience. And I wish that we had more of that. And thanks that we have Paul.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Need to replicate Paul in other districts. I also Ish, I also think that maybe the Learning Futures collaboratives, right? If you're finding yourself working alone, then maybe talk to Kathleen King-Torius about others who could be connected. Could that build into something larger, right? Where you have this community of people around the issues that you care about, who also care about those. And the Learning Futures Collaboratives offers a really nice way to do that. And that's people, I know I was just recently on the OASIS call, but people from districts, people from organizations, nonprofits, ASU, families, students, you name it, people are there. And it starts to coalesce that group of people that have that common interest. And then that in itself will create that network as well. And Kathleen loves to talk about the Learning Futures Collaborative, so she would love to hear from you.
Any more comments, questions? We're approaching time almost.
3 minutes.
Ready to
Yeah.
wrap up? Okay, so first of all, I would really like to say thank you to the presenters, Wendy, Paul, and Brad. Great job. Really, we could almost experience the authenticity of your partnership. So thank you for sharing this, and all the people who are in attendance today. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for participating in this exchange of ideas, sharing your insights. And as we sort of think about our own role, I would just like to remind us to really think about how we might be able to deepen a partnership that we have been working with right now, both for our own research goals and their own immediate needs in their own agencies and districts. So that you've just left me with that. I really thank you for really raising my awareness to that question as well. And with that, I just want to remind that we have our next Just an Hour on the 19th, and we will be talking about creating knowledge, mobilizing people, and taking action to improve education. So with that, I wish you well, happy Friday and a great weekend. And thank you all for joining.